This is the African servant. They, whoever they are, say that the truth is a bitter pill to swallow. But I dare say this: it is only true if your entire existence is based upon lies, manipulation, forgery, and above all, usurping another people's heritage. It is without doubt that the message I'm about to share today will cause lots of discomfort, especially those who their entire existence has been based upon belief in fairy tales and unicorns. That they, whoever they are, have a heritage that is adored by the world for its sophistication and magnificence, spanning thousands of years, which has brought about a sense of zeal, pride, and above all, untarnished grandeur based upon the little knowledge of history they have of their so-called ancestors' achievements. Yet, in reality, the only achievements their ancestors brought about was bringing an end to a civilization that had lasted thousands of years before they could even phantomize bringing about any writing or religious systems. When I say the word Egypt, what comes into mind? Is it a tall jet black Nilotic man named Cheptum, Chepseba or Cheptanui? Or is it a tall white Arab man named Mohammed Abdul or Salim that comes into picture? Or better yet, is it a tall white man named John Wick, Albert Einstein, Sylvester Stallone, Arnold Schwarzenegger? Or is it Albert Jones? Personally, I believe it's only a matter of time before their so-called omniscient Egyptologists unearth a suspicious-looking pharaoh of so-called ancient Egypt that goes by John the Builder of Pyramids, Charles Darwin, the greatest philosopher of ancient Egypt, or Jesus Christ of Napata. If it is the latter, then good luck to finding an ancient Egyptian pharaoh with a similar-sounding name. Oh wait, they already did it. Please pause this clip and go to your browser and key in Tutankhamun images. Now please go to any Arab country or any European country and tell me if you'll find anyone with a similar sounding name. Personally, whenever I'm stressed up and in need of a cheer, I always look up the latest discoveries on ancient Egypt by those so-called Egyptologists and archaeologists, and their contradictions always crack my ribs. You should try it. I swear there's nothing way funnier than a so-called learned professor making a fool out of himself or herself, especially when they come up with facial reconstruction images that contradict the images drawn up by the ancient Egyptians on the walls of their pyramids and temples dating back thousands of years, depicting themselves doing various activities. You'd be mistaken to think that that is the funniest part of it. Apparently, there is more to come. The entire facial reconstruction process is a comedy show of its own making. Why? It is because of this. Whenever it is a German Egyptologist or French Egyptologist that carries out the facial reconstruction process, the bust resulting from the facial reconstruction process always comes up with some bias and apologies. And by this I mean that the German will come up with one resembling a German, but in order to please the Egyptian government will always turn it a little to entertain and make it appealing to the lighter Arab majority. Oh wait, and have you ever questioned why Arabs, no matter the darkness or lightness of their complexion, are always classified as Caucasian or white in America? A similar approach as that used by the German facial reconstruction experts is applied by the French. The big question is this: why would the highly learned and skilled academics come up with different busts of the same individual, having varying facial features that don't align, if they cannot reach an agreement on simple things such as how one looks like? Why should we be obliged to trust their accounts and narrations of ancient Egyptian history? It is for this reason that I decided not to fully rely on their narrations of how the past was or looked like and what those past people's lives was like. If indeed such a people did exist, sure enough, their ancient cultural practices, traditions, religious practices and social norms must be evident today. As it is easier to change a people's language, views about the world or even religion, but it is harder to change traditional customs, social norms and values, especially since these are woven into the fabric of one's entire existence and identity. A good example of this is colonization. It brought about changes in language, education systems, religious practices and worldviews, making some colonies in Africa to speak French, English, Portuguese or even Spanish, and made some also identify as Muslim, Catholic, Protestant, Christian, but these did not change their traditions, social norms and culture as much. Now my biggest question is this, especially with the emergence of contradicting busts supposed to be depicting a single individual. Where is the evidence of the continuation of the ancient MISRIAN way of life among those who have come up with the birds resembling them? Do they do their hair, trim their beards, dress like, rear the same animals, and even, to some extent, identify with the same ancient traditional practices of the Egyptians? And at the end of their traditional festivities, is it the name Isis, Amen-Ra, Aset, Osiris, or Ptah that comes about, or is it Jesus, Allah, or Muhammad that is mentioned? And with the historical narrations as a people, especially in their origins, match with the well-researched and proven historical accounts, which, unlike the busts, have not only been documented by ancient historians, but are also agreed upon without contradiction by modern historians. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you the Nilotic peoples of Africa, who their historical heritage, traditions, and cultural practices not only match with the documented ancient records, but also align and agree with them as well. This is evident especially with the narration of their migration into Africa that agree with the documented frequent invasions that Egypt often suffered, and this brought about setbacks in their civilization. For instance, the Hyksos, Assyrians, Greeks, Romans, and their last encounter was with the Arabs. It should be noted that the term Nilotes is a generalized term grouping together both the Nubians and other Nilotic-speaking peoples. Thus, all ancient Misrians can be termed as Nilotic, but not all Nilotes can be termed as being of Misrian heritage. In other words, it is a term coined to hide the identity of the true Misrians within a generalized grouping of people. For instance, if was to talk about the Germans and instead chose to generalize them under the people of Europe, would that have been specific in distinguishing them from the Brits, French, Spaniards, and Italians? To watch the entire clip of the Misrian people and their ancient Egyptian heritage, please do like, share, and subscribe to get notified of the next video. For those of you who still think that Egyptian history as you've been told today is the truth, please answer this.
When you look at Egyptology and you go to any book on Egyptology, the first thing you will find omitting is Ham. And that's odd because Egypt is called the land of Ham in antiquity. But you do not hear that mentioned in Egyptology. Why is that? Because if you mention that there was a Ham and this land of Egypt was called the land of Ham, then the pharaohs are black.
If my content interests you, you can also look up these other videos.